I'm Sophia Mittman, and I'm 22 years old. I have done biking for babies for 2 years now. I've been a rider for the past 2 years, and I also recently graduated from MIT. And a couple years ago, actually a few years ago, I was at a conference in Washington, D.C., and another girl there about my age found out that I went to MIT, and she came up to me and said, "Hey, I grew up at MIT." And I said, "What do you mean?" And she said, "Well, when my mom was there, she was an undergraduate student, and when she was 19 years old, she got pregnant with me." And somebody pointed her to a pregnancy resource center in the area, and so she went there. And after talking with them and finding out about the support and resources that they had there, decided to take 6 months off of college, had me, and then went on to continue and graduate from MIT. And so I was standing there shaking because I've been a 19-year-old at MIT, and I can say that MIT is no joke. So the fact that a pregnancy resource center empowered this woman, this young woman, 19-year-old at MIT, to choose life for her daughter, who was now a college student in Washington, D.C., young woman, beautiful, that completely inspired me. And that decision to choose life made a huge difference in my life and completely changed my whole worldview of what being pro-life really means. And compare that to a couple months later, I had a conversation with a classmate of mine, and my classmate told me a story about when she had a pregnancy scare and she sat in her dorm room and she cried alone for days. End of story. And I remember hearing the trembling and utter fear and terror in her voice as she recounted this story, terrified of a decision she thought she might have to make completely on her own, a very difficult decision. And it broke my heart to see that in her mind, she was completely alone and there was no one there for her. When I know that there are pregnancy resource centers out there who are there for that exact reason, to be there for women and to help them, to comfort them, to give them the resources and support they need. And that classmate I was talking to told me, pro-life people say they're pro-life and then they never do anything about it. And I had heard that before, but nobody had ever said it to my face. And the hardest part was that when she was saying it to me, she was right. I was only spewing words, not very full of wisdom, not very full of compassion. And so ultimately, through many God moments, I came across biking for babies through some family members, and ultimately decided to join after I remember I was standing at my sink washing dishes thinking, I'm not a cyclist. I don't have a bike. I'm 21 years old. I'm living in a new place for the first time across the country from my family. I'm on a college budget. I'm working full time and taking part-time classes at MIT. I would be training completely alone if I did biking for babies. I really have no idea what I'm doing. I really don't think I can do this for the next 6 months. And then it hit me that those were some of the same thoughts that a young woman might think if she were faced with an unplanned pregnancy and she felt alone. And it was at that moment that I knew I had to do biking for babies, to do something physical to help these women who find themselves in unplanned situations. And what has been the result of that? Probably one of the most physically challenging but most adventurous things in my life with biking for babies and doing the national ride, but also on the side of learning how to be pro-life and how to talk about these hard concepts with people. I've been able to have conversations with people who otherwise I would have never brought abortion up to. I've been able to share it with the Pro-Life Club at MIT and have helped volunteers come and help out at the Pregnancy Resource in Boston. I've had conversations with people who disagree with me, but they've never had conversations with anybody else they disagree with. And to me, that's been empowering, just to be able to share the joy of what being pro-life means. And biking for babies is one of the hardest things I've ever done, but something that keeps me coming back is that even though it's hard, every year on the national ride, I see how good it is. I see the beauty, the truth of the generosity of people who are pro-life. I see the generosity of these pregnancy resource centers, the utter love and goodwill that they have for these women, even amongst the midst of what's being said about them by the media. Another thing that keeps me coming back to biking for babies is the fact that there are so many young adults who are on fire for helping these women. They're willing to sacrifice their time, their weekends, their physical abilities, their money, their summers, their vacation time from work their comfort levels for talking in front of people when sharing about pregnancy resource centers. They sacrifice all these things, and we're all doing it together to help these pregnancy resource centers and the women that they serve. And it reminds me every year that in order to help those who are alone, we can't be alone. We can't do it alone. And so it reminds me that there is a community, there's a huge community across the country. And now I know people and have friends in states all across the country who are just as passionate about this mission as I am. And that's always reassuring and always rejuvenizing every year. That's why I'm in Biking for Babies, and that's why I continue to do it, even though it's hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life, but I will continue